This is the Cowboy Cosmology. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a story. And then I'm going to tell you a story in a different way. And then I'm going to tell you a story in an even higher way. Okay? So here's the way that the story begins. The story begins at home, where a story should begin. And home is very nice, and it has this beautiful grass, and it's very green and beautiful. But you grow tired of this. You grow tired of this place. It's very limited. You have all this space around, and you have this tiny little home here. So what you do is you have the desire to venture out. And you'll venture out away from home. And at the edge of town, you'll find this cool little place. This is the tavern. Okay? And at the tavern, there are many, many people there having a great time, but they tell you stories. And they tell you stories about the outside world. And it makes you really want to go out there. It inspires you. So you do. You leave the tavern and you leave your town. And when you leave your town, you see all these little rocks in the road. And there's something about these rocks that inspires you to pick them up, put them in your pocket. And so you don't know why you do this, but you do it just because they're special little things. And then you start to realize, okay, I'm going a little bit too far here. I'm going a little bit too far away from home. I need to mark my way. And just so happens you have all these rocks in your pocket, and you mark your way by building a cairn. And what a cairn is it leads you back home. So the further out on your journey that you go, the more cairns you have to build, just far enough away so that you can find your way back to the next one. And then you build all these cairns. And then so they kind of remind you of home, each one of these. And whenever you become homesick, you can always find your way back by following the cairns back home. Okay? So that's really the basic story. So that's the tier 1 level story. This is the surface level story. But there's a deeper story to this. And it's the metaphorical story. Okay? Because at home, what makes all this grass grow and what nourishes your soul is this well. And the well is a well into your life force, into the source of your being, your identity, who you are, who you really are. Home reminds you of that like no other place does. And so when you're at home, you have access to this well, and you could bring up this life-giving water anytime you like. But the desire to see the world, it overwhelms that comfort that home gives you. And so you do travel to the tavern. And when you're at the tavern, you hear these beautiful stories that the people tell of the world, but they also feed you a type of water in a cup, but it's not water, it's beer. And the beer hyper inspires you. It's this new drink, and it gives you these heightened mental powers, you know. But it also does something else. It numbs you. It numbs you to the pain of leaving home. And it allows you to go along for a while without this nourishing life source in the well. And so you drink the beer, and then you remember we go along and we pick up these stones. Well, what these stones actually are, they're not just stones, because we're in the metaphorical realm now. They are experiences, books you read, people you talk to, music you listen to, movies you watch, anything that you find valuable enough to collect along your journey. And you pick up all these experiences and ideas and whatnot, and you put them in your pocket. And so what do the cairns represent metaphorically? They represent that way back home. And as sort of a guide. So what they represent metaphorically, these collection of stones, these collections of experiences, they're a philosophy. So these are philosophies that you use in your life to move along. Okay? And so and these philosophies also, they help you find your way back home, metaphorically, mentally. Okay? So you have all these philosophies and you build these philosophies, but that's not the whole story at all. Because at a certain point in your life, you will enter this realm here. And what do you notice about this realm? There's no cairns, there's no stones, because there's stones along the way, and that you're building cairns with. You'll run out of things that inspire you. You're at the very edge, and you're away from home, and you'll feel lost. Okay? You'll feel lost with no ideas and no philosophies. And this is the desert. And the desert will always happen to you on your journey. You'll always run into a desert. And you'll still have this desire to move forward, but you can only go so far with no stones. And you'll just come back to your last philosophy over and over again. And it'll be very cyclical, and it'll be very, you'll lose your sense of self because you're all the way away from home. And this is basically the hardest part of the journey. And what happens then when you're in the desert is there will be an earthquake that happens in you, metaphorically. And the earthquake will open up into this. Okay? This is your ego. This is your ego. You finally can experience your ego now. And then within your ego, you will fall into the crack of the earthquake to your inner self. And it's a very restrictive place, and it's very circular, and you'll be trapped there for a while. And you'll realize there's no way to climb up this thing. Okay? This hole. The only way forward, you realize, is to do the hard task of digging down into your ego, into your center, into your core. And without knowing it, this terrible experience, you've actually accessed directly this life force. You actually now have direct access to your identity, and you know exactly who you are. Okay? And then you gain sight. See how this looks like an eyeball? So you've gained sight, and now you can see through your inner self, through your ego. And then you realize that your entire world, your entire life has been clouded. It's been clouded by this dark cloud here surrounding your experience. And this dark cloud is the miasma. And the miasma blocks enlightenment. But once you've gone down into your core, and you can see through your inner self and your outer self, you can actually see outside through the miasma. You're running out of room. And then what's important is, on the other side of the miasma, enlightenment. So that is actually the inner journey, is to find enlightenment. Okay? And you've gained it. So that is the completion of the metaphorical journey. And that allows you to continue on. Okay? And when you continue, how do you continue on? Well, when you get enlightenment, you can actually see what's there. Okay? And remember, the problem that we have right now is we're in the desert. We have no stones. We have no stones to build cairns with, so we can't move on. And when you are enlightened and you can see enlightenment, it's all this one big thing. But you can grab a piece of it, and you can imagine something, and you pull it down into earth. And that's by writing a poem or inventing something, or having some idea that you can manifest down into earth, into your physical world. And that's powerful. So what happens is you experience enlightenment, and then you pull something that you've experienced down, and that's an idea. That's a stone. So you've created a stone. Now you're creating your own stones. And then you're stacking those stones. And then you're building cairns. And that's what allows you to move forward along this journey. And the journey is endless. And the journey is not just your journey either. The journey is shared by all people that have ever lived and ever will live. So you're on this huge journey with all of mankind together. And the whole point is to create stones, to build cairns, to move forward. You're expanding consciousness. You're expanding all human consciousness of all time. Okay? And what that looks like is this, okay? So we're now moving into from the metaphorical, from the individual, into the universal, okay? And this represents all of those at the same time. Okay, so this is the source of your life, but it's also the source of all human life, because it's fractal. It's all shared, and it's all one small piece of a greater whole. And that's what you are. Okay, and then so this is what the universe looks like. Right here in this little spiral thing. And it is time and the universe is a spiral, because it's cyclical, yes, but it also is cyclical at a higher level. So you can look down and see cycles that have happened before you at a lower level than you. Okay, and if you look at it this way, it's you start out as an individual, and then you go deeper, and then you see at a deeper level is your family, and then at a deeper level than that is a community. Okay, and we're starting to get away from the individual and broader into, eventually it'll lead to, there's no distinguishing anybody from each other. So the community, and then your country, and then your culture, and then eventually it leads to just this oneness that it springs from the source. Everything, ideas, people, things, animals, everything springs from the source. Okay. So where are we? Yes. And then you will notice that the spiral here, it looks a lot like an upside down cairn. Because a cairn, a philosophy, it's nothing but a reflection of the universe. That's what a philosophy is. A philosophy is some kind of contained version of the universe that you can reflect on, you know. And that's what a cairn is it's a physical reflection of the universe. And you'll also notice that this whole journey is part of a spiral, okay? It's just continuing on this spiral. It's huge. And what kind of keeps the universe together, and what kind of keeps you together, is this last concept. The rod of truth. And the truth is always at the center of everything, okay? It's at the center of you, it's at the center of family, community, culture, country, everything. It's constant, and it's true, and you can expand away from it, but if you expand too far away from the truth, you will start to get pulled in back to the truth, you know, by gravity. It's just a law of nature. When we expand, we lose connection to the truth. And if we expand too far, we crash down to the truth. But being close to the truth is great, but we also desire to expand out and adventure. Okay, so it's this constant push and pull of truth versus expansion that you will find in your own life. You go too far and then you have to come back, and then you go too far and you have to come back. And this is also the rise and fall of civilizations as well. It happens everywhere. So the rod of truth is important. And overall, if you want an easier way to think of this whole map, you could think of the first place that we visited, our little story that ended with the building of cairns and going on an adventure. That's what takes place at a superficial material level. So this is your material life. This here, this inner journey here, this is your spiritual journey in life, okay? And the thing that mediates the material and the spiritual is the home, the sense of identity, the sense of truth. Okay, that's the self. Okay, that's yourself. That mediates the material and the spiritual. Okay, so material, spiritual, self. That's laterally what's going on. But vertically, what's going on is the superficial, the material, that's at the bottom. And then at a higher level, you have the individual, material, spiritual, self, material, individual, and then the universal. Okay, and then the universal. So this journey is happening materially, spiritually, and with the self, and it's also happening material with material, the individual, and the universal, all at the same time. Okay, and that's why the Cowboy Cosmology is a complete philosophy, and this is what it looks like.